Hello and welcome back. In this video I'm making a dragon's eye decoration, and I did this project with my 5th grade students. It's been pretty popular with them. They seem to be enjoying it. I had got it from another art teacher who I think did hers a little bit differently. It was a similar idea, and her students also really like it a lot, and they do it every year. In this first part, I'm sorry for the fuzziness and lack of focus. I had forgotten to press the focus button when I did this video. This was live during class, and so it's not quite as clear as it could be. But you can see the process where I have a little piece of glass. It's flat on the bottom and curved on the top, and then I traced it and I'm coloring it to have that dragon's eye kind of look. Then I'm cutting it out, and I'm going to sandwich it in between the two pieces of clay so that there's going to be clay on the bottom that keeps it trapped, and then this little drawing of the eye shape, and then there's going to be more clay around the outside holding it in place. So this is the polymer clay that I'm using. This is Sculpey 3. No, this is original Sculpey. And I have to kind of knead it with my hands first. This can, if you do this a lot, this can kind of make your hands start to ache a little bit because it is quite stiff, and it helps to break it up into smaller pieces. It's also a little bit crumbly, so it's important to make sure to clean up all the little crumbs, because otherwise they will get stuck to the floor and they'll be hard to scrape off later. They don't necessarily sweep right back up. So there's the back piece that I've pinched to be pretty thin, not extremely thin because I don't want it to break, but fairly thin. And then the same thing with this eyelid. I don't want it to be so small and thin that it doesn't work for trapping the glass, but I want it to be thin enough to look like an eyelid. So I've got 2 pieces on there to make sure that it's enough to keep it in place and to not break off. Sculpey is one of my more comfortable materials. I worked with this a lot when I was a teenager. It was one of my favorite materials to work with for a long time. And so I find it very intuitive. I think the kids also find it very intuitive, though. I think even if you haven't worked with it all that much, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to guess what it's going to do. I had bought some plastic tools to use with this, and so I have a little kind of plastic butter knife. It's fine to use other stuff that you have at home too. If you have even just a pencil, works fine with a tool for this, or a knitting needle if you have one. I also gave the kids some bamboo skewers, especially to write their names on it, so that they could tell whose was whose after it was done baking. And you can smooth all of those edges just with your fingers. It's a good idea to smooth wherever you can, because that way it'll stick together really well and it's going to have a little bit more structural integrity. This part was the next day, and so you might have seen a little bit of it kind of snapped off, and when it's warm it's more plastic and more likely to stretch rather than break, whereas when it's cool and it hasn't been worked with for a while, it's more likely to crack rather than stretch. And so I had cut off a little bit of extra. You might notice that the eye in this one is a tiny bit different than the other one. I had started a different one before, but didn't film it, and so I had filmed the new one, and this one I kind of liked a little bit more. It had a little bit more interesting kind of design inside of it, and I'm adding some kind of scaly horn-like decorations to it. This was a 3-day project, so on the first day we made the eye and we started adding the clay outside. This is the second day where we're adding the textures and adding those little horns and scales and things like that to it. And I have a couple of texture rollers on there. When I was at the art conference, they gave me some of these texture rollers, so the little gray ones, and I might get more of them because I did like using them quite a bit. And I also have some stamps that were in my closet that I was using for texture rollers. And you might have also seen the skewer in there. I was using that for texture as well. So as you can see, I added quite a few decorations to my piece. This took about 20 minutes, and I was working on this before class started so that I would have it ready to show to the students. So that was 20 uninterrupted minutes, not 20 minutes of class time. Some of the students wanted to do about this much decoration, and so a few of them got it done in the about half an hour that they had available during class, and a few of them wanted to wait to finish it the next class to make sure that it was really finished. So I did let them finish it during the next class if they needed to. I let them keep it between classes. I'm making some holes in it with the skewer, and I wanted to have them balanced, so that second hole I drilled I decided to move because I thought maybe it was going to hang at kind of a weird angle if I left it there. And then I put them in to try to be a little bit balanced for putting a wire on it. You'll see at the end that I put a copper wire to be able to hang it. And unlike ceramics, these holes don't shift, they don't fill in, they just stay put where they are. And so it's pretty easy to make hanging holes for this. So that's where it should be at the end of the second class. And then at the third class or fourth, if they decided to keep it between classes 2 and 3, we're painting it. This is using the water-soluble oil paints because I have them. It is important to bake it before painting them. A couple of years ago, I had tried painting them before they were baked because we have to bake them in the oven. It's 275 degrees for about 15 minutes. And I do have to have that time available to go back and forth to the oven. I can't do it overlapping with class since I don't have a good enough toaster oven in my classroom. And so I do have to do all of those kind of in a batch and have a little bit of time to work on it. Otherwise, we aren't able to paint them if they don't get baked. But once they are baked, this paint works really, really well. Before, I had used either the colored clay, which is a little bit harder to distribute and also a little bit more expensive, or I had used acrylic paint, and acrylic paint works really well, but it stains, so I don't like using it with the students as much, and also it dries really fast, so you can't change things as well. You'll notice that I'm going to wipe off some of this in just a minute. It's harder to do effects like that. You have to really be poised to act and know what you're doing with acrylic paint, whereas this one's a little bit more forgiving. And I hadn't realized that oil-based paints were so compatible with the plastic-based clay, but they actually do. This clay is a little bit oily, and so they go together really well. And I really like the look of this, actually more than acrylic, and I like being able to kind of blend the colors a little bit more. I had done a previous one a couple of years ago. I might post it. It's a Domovoy, which is a little household guardian, and I just, on that one, I had stopped at this point. I put the watered down paint into the cracks, and then I just left it there because it was trying to mimic more wood carving, where that's the way that they finish it. In this one, I'm trying to add some metallics, and so I'm adding that second layer. And I have, for this one, it's like a yellow over purple, so they're complementary colors with each other. So in the finished piece, you can't see the purple very clearly. One thing that the oil-based paints do have that's a little bit tricky is that they stay wet for the entire painting session, and also they stay wet for several days afterwards. They have to dry for about a week. And so the purple and the yellow are mixing a little bit. It's making some browns with them, and I just keep kind of rubbing those off on the paper towel. If I was using colors that were more analogous, I wouldn't have as much of an issue with it, but they do still blend. So if I had like a light over a dark, then I would still probably have to deal with that. I'd be still rubbing off that extra paint onto the paper towel as I worked. So that first layer is wetter so that it goes into the cracks, and then I got the paper towel and I'm drying my paintbrush too, because this one is drier so that it will just sit on the top so that it won't go into the cracks, and then that way you can see a little bit of that depth from the paint that's still in the cracks. And then on that little tiny lid there, I had put some metallic powder, and I'm adding a little bit of that metallic powder. It does make it rub off a little bit, and it's not quite as secure, so you have to be a little bit careful with it, but I do like the kind of pretty luster that it gives it. And then I'm just painting on that little bit of metallic there. And then that step is finished. I added one more step at the end. That's the copper wire. So I'm making a little loop on the copper wire. For this piece, I did end up adding magnets as well. I had to add 3 magnets to the back in order to put it on my board for the students to see. But that takes a lot of magnets, so I'm encouraging them to use the wire to hang it as well. And it could be an ornament, or it could go on the wall, or some of these might go. So that is the end of my video. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed it.